So let's talk about positive, sustainable change. I mean, I guess the obvious starting place is starting place. Where do we start if we've got some kind of change we want to put in play? What might be a good starting place for us?
Yeah, and I think let's see and back it up maybe a step further.
Okay.
And that is to say, change really starts with awareness, right? If we're not aware, there's not going to be a change. And in fact, I'm thinking about, I had the opportunity to go through a training program by a group called ProSci. They've got a neat change model that you may have heard of called the ADKAR, ADKAR. So awareness. So if we're not aware, there's not going to be change. We need desire, right? If I'm aware, but I don't care, not going to change. Knowledge. I may be aware and care, but I don't know what to do, right? That's a great time to reach out to a professional for help. Skill building, right? The ability piece has got to be in place, and then you got to have reinforcement. So that model's really helpful for starting with this, but ultimately it's about what's the goal? What's the change you want to see, right? So once you're aware of what it is you want to see, then I encourage folks to use a process that I like to call small experiments. In fact, in my coaching conversations, we always end with, okay, so what's the small experiment that we're going to try here?
Yeah. So what's an example of a small experiment?
Yeah. So years ago, I had a significant health crisis, and that's actually precipitated some of my interest in burnout. Basically, the run-up would be, I finished my PhD, defended my dissertation, and a week later, I was in the emergency room with an obstruction in my bowel. I was a 40-year-old male, healthy, exercised regularly, all this stuff. And that was the beginning of a 2-year process where I really struggled to eat solid foods. I struggled with chronic bacterial overgrowths in my gut, lost a lot of weight, and got some pretty bleak diagnoses locally. And so after that, we had some friends who live in Minneapolis who are connected with the Mayo Clinic. They encouraged me to come to Mayo. Mayo was doing some research on some of my symptoms. And after 2 weeks of poking and prodding by the best medical minds in the country, if not the world, the doctor sat me down and he said, "Mr. Ward, tell me, how do you manage your stress?"
Wow.
Yeah. I thought, there's no way we're having this conversation, right? This is crazy. But during this season was actually when I started to appreciate the power of small experiments in several ways, several places. One of which was, as I mentioned, I was struggling with just getting enough nutrition. And so I lost a lot of strength. I didn't have a lot of stamina. And I was really concerned because I still needed to work. And thankfully, I was able to. But again, trying to figure out, all right, how do I get my strength back when I'm trying to work? I don't have a lot of stamina. I need a lot of sleep. My body was just under a lot of challenges, a lot of stress. And so I decided, okay, I think maybe I can do 10 push-ups a day. If I can just do that, that would be progress. And I've been reading about change because of the professional work I do. And one of the things that I'd come up with or come across is this idea of pairing change, the change you want to make, to something that's already existing in your routine. Yeah, so my small experiment was to say, okay, I want to get strong. So the experiment was, I'm going to do 10 push-ups a day before I take my shower, because I take a shower every day. And then I'm just going to see what happens. Because the small experiment process is about saying, okay, here's the change I want to make. Here is the next step that I think I can take. It's going to get me one step closer to that larger change. I take that action, and then I see what I learned. Right? So in this case, the change I wanted to make was I wanted to get my strength back. The next logical step seemed to be, okay, I can do some push-ups. That's a small thing that I can do given the constraints I'm operating with. I also had this kind of theoretical idea of I can tie it to something that's already existing in my schedule, see what happens. What did I learn? Well, one, I learned that, actually 10 push-ups a day when you're in the space I was in can make a difference. And in fact, I started that practice in 2015 when I was having all those health issues, and I still do that. That's part of my routine. I still do some push-ups every day with my shower routine. And then two, again, I recognize the power of tying the change we want to make to something that's already existing in our lives. So that'd be that kind of that reinforcement concept.